People keep telling me they know me. No one does.
Yeah, because no one likes you. As if it needs any introduction, but you're gonna get one anyway. Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, is supposedly the final installment in the long-standing Skywalker saga dating all the way back to 1977, aka prehistoric times before the likes of YouTube or smartphones. Seriously, how did people cope without guys like me to watch online back then?
What?
Actually, scratch that. Because most people in the 70s were too busy doing this. So after 42 long years, things are finally ending. And we can move past the story of a kid who grew up, threw a tantrum because he didn't get his way.
How can you do this? This is outrageous. It's unfair.
And ended up taking it all out on the entire galaxy. Seriously, Vader. Couldn't you have just done some hot yoga instead? It's not like Mustafar is lacking in ideal spots. If this really is the end of the Skywalker saga, then I'm glad, because it's time to move on to new characters, adventures, and dare I even dream, eras. Old Republic possibly waiting for us in the rafters. And we all know that they brought the Emperor back, but I think even he's getting tired at this point. I mean, the dude was already pushing 200 in The Empire Strikes Back, and that was in 1980. I can't imagine that skincare regimen holding up for that long. Dude can only do Botox for so long before this happens. Apart from the Emperor, this one brings back almost everyone for the final installment. I'm not going to spoil anything, but even certain characters I didn't expect showed up.
Get out of here.
No, Mrs. Step.
For those who've been living under a rock or just came out of a coma since 1976, Star Wars isn't some bastardized spin-off of Star Trek. It's completely different. It's about wars that take place in a galaxy full of stars. Okay, so it shares some similarities with Star Trek, but instead of phasers, there are laser swords. And the people who can use these laser swords, lightsabers, can also manipulate an omnipresent energy field known to them as the Force, which lets them do things like meditate in the air, if they're good, or toss supersized saucers at others and electrocute them, if they're dicks. That's pretty much all you need to know. I mean, laser swords and lightning?
Enough said.
The Rise of Skywalker takes place sometime after The Last Jedi, with Rey and her friend being pulled back into the fray with the totally original First Order, who are totally not a ripoff of the Empire from the original trilogy. Meanwhile, you've got Kylo Ren trying to slide into Rey's DMs again via the Force bond they formed in the previous movie. Desperate much? Seriously, don't they have an intergalactic version of their own Tinder app? Without spoiling anything, the heroes have to once again race across the galaxy in the Millennium Falcon, which has got to have some serious mileage on it by now, while they get chased by the First Order as they try to stop the Emperor from returning, because after so many years, Disney is clearly incapable of coming up with a compelling enough major villain, who's not Maleficent, without needing to resort to a guy who seemed to be perfectly fine chilling at the bottom of a Death Star reactor after all these years only to get forced out of retirement. No wonder he's always so cranky. And now for my contractually obligated like section.
Your mouth is smiling, but your eyes look all sad. Why?
The visuals are... If you thought the ones in The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi were appealing, in The Rise of Skywalker, they've taken them and they've injected them with HGH. Kind of like Dana White's head. The majority of the movie's like a visual meth rush for the eyes that would even make Heisenberg take notice. Sometimes it's a little bit too overwhelming with everything that's happening on screen, but the locations are nice and varied, and the CGI, minus a questionable de-aging scene, does a strong job in bringing them to life. Ditto for the physics, especially whenever the Force is used and its impact on the surroundings. The eye candy's abundant, and everything's well done. So unless you're a diabetic, or you like your graphics medium rare, you won't be disappointed. I also thought that some of the previous film's mysteries were at least finally explained. Given that Lucasfilm had backed themselves into a corner with some of their narrative choices, it was good to see some closure for certain confounding plot points. unlike certain films or TV shows. The acting in this one is also the strongest yet, particularly the performances of Daisy Ridley and especially Adam Driver, who both bring an energy and spectrum of emotions to flesh out their characters. In a trilogy bereft of memorable ones, Driver's Kylo Ren shines and is by far the most well-rounded heading into episode 9. I was worried they'd derail his development like a bad roller coaster, but I enjoyed watching his growth and conclusion here. Daisy Ridley's Rey, who many complained about being a Mary Sue, especially in The Force Awakens, is more dynamic and really does a good job of portraying her struggles towards accepting who she really is. Other performances are great as well. Kerry Russell, aka the Pink Power Ranger, is a welcome addition. John Boyega is solid, and Oscar Isaac just has to show up to charm us all.
Only thing I gotta do is just show up.
And lastly is Ian McDiarmid and his latest rendition of Palpatine, who, for better or for worse, returns. McDiarmid continues right where he left off from the prequel trilogy, bringing his menacing energy back. Though his acting is strong, it lacks the nuance portrayed in the original trilogy. Vegans, you should steer clear. There's a bit of ham involved.
That's all, folks.
So what didn't I like? Where do I begin? How about the fact that the humor didn't land once? We're talking about the droids of Star Wars that are meant to be comedy relief. Or the fact that Leia's scenes felt forced and the dialogue
Unnatural.
The entire movie felt uninspired and unoriginal. That's J.J. Abrams for you. If you're big into recycling, then you're gonna love this, because much of the plot was a rehash of A New Hope, Return of the Jedi, or Rogue One. No surprises there. We all know J.J. Abrams' motto.
Recycle, reduce, reuse.
That's right. He's trying to course correct, which is really surprising, seeing he had no issues letting certain ideas and characters set up from the previous films, like the Knights of Ren, just go to waste. It's all about sticking it to Rian Johnson, isn't it, JJ? So get this. A Star Wars movie was boring. A film about adventure, action, romance, and I'm falling asleep out there, people. I mean, I'm falling asleep because there was no threat, no urgency. The action sequences were mundane. Much of the plot involved fetch quests. Here to there, talk to this person, do that, and conveniently everybody just happened to be standing there in the middle of the desert waiting for them to arrive. I mean, really, what the hell? As for the big set pieces, they felt more messy than epic. Just signs of weak directing and editing that made the action hard to follow and enjoy. I mean, they're over here, they're over there, they're back to this guy, they're over there. I mean, it was all over the place. How the hell am I supposed to enjoy this when I don't even know who's winning and who's dying? And, you know, it was... This is Star Wars. The action's supposed to be one of the biggest draws. Another problem was The Rise of Skywalker obsessed too much on damage control.
And for that, I am sorry, and I accept accountability.
Please clap.
So what exactly...
As divisive as it was, The Last Jedi at least attempted something new. And instead of having the courage of his convictions, for better or for worse, Abrams spends most of this movie trying to undo what Rian Johnson did. Too bad he couldn't just do this with the entire new trilogy. This leads me to my last point. Rather than having a coherent narrative coursing through the three films, each one feels like it endeavors to undermine the previous one, making the whole trilogy appear disjointed. Clearly, Lucasfilm failed to guide its writers and directors towards a unified vision in the way Marvel Studios does with their movies. And that's completely inexcusable, considering Star Wars is the marquee franchise under the same Disney umbrella. It's not like you don't have the resources to hire talented people to steer the ship smoothly in a new direction. In the Navy, come on and join your fellow men in the Navy. So how would I sum up my experience of Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, you ask me? Let's just say it wasn't that good.
Mediocre piece of shit! and I've earned my right to say it. Okay?
Which is kind of generous on my part, because I thought it was
boring,
dull, and miserable. I mean, there was some redeeming qualities. The acting.
You betray the law!
As expected, the special effects. I mean, it's Star Wars we're talking about here. The score, John Williams. What else do you expect? But I was also anticipating something greater than what I witnessed, which I could only compare to those who were there to see the Hindenburg in a ball of flames coming down to the ground and exploding.
Oh my, get out of the way, please. It's burning, bursting in a flame.
This is Star Wars. It's something that transcended film and became pop culture, a phenomenon. This is something I could only have hoped for the best, and yet disappointment is an understatement. My score for this one is 4 out of 10 Baby Yodas, because I'm going to be crying myself to sleep with those dolls under my arms. Why? Somewhere in a galaxy far, far away, there's probably a reviewer using the Force to persuade people to watch, like, and comment on his videos. You will like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Did it work?
No.
Damn it! Well, until I figure out how to use this mind trick ability, just smash down that like button below instead and tell me what you liked, disliked, hated.
You suck! You're no talent!
And anything else for this video. See you next time. Please?